WDTFF.
Once again, here's Drinking and Talking Fantasy Football with your host, Jake Trowbridge and Dustin Lunt.
Happy Tuesday, everyone. Welcome back to DTFF. Oh my gosh, I am so excited. I don't have to work anymore this week. Thanksgiving is here. It's my favorite type of meal ever. Thanksgiving type meal, my favorite type of meal. Love it all. We've got football on Thursday. We've got football on Friday. We got football on Sunday, Monday. It is just a packed weekend, and I'm so fucking excited for it. So lots to talk about this evening. We're just going to be doing but we're just doing some mailbag Q&A type show here. Something to keep it easy and loose. Hopefully answer all your start-sit questions that you have, considering we have so many different days of games this week. But before we all get into it, I got to say hi to my co-host, Jake. How are you doing this evening, sir?
Fantastic. For all the reasons you mentioned, Dustin, I'm fantastic. But I have to ask you, in terms of this being your favorite meal, is it because of the type of foods or the abundance of foods? Because for me, it's more about the abundance and the gluttony of it all, save for like one very specific dish that I never get to eat any other time. What's it for you?
It's both. Because I'm just going to say stuffing and gravy are like together are like two of my most favorite food. Like to have them together, and I only have it on Thanksgiving too. Like it's not like I just sit and make stuffing on random times at home, even though I should because I love it so much. But no, stuffing is one of my most favorite foods, so it's very special to have it on Thanksgiving. So that's why it's one of my favorites. But it's the abundance of food. You get the turkey, you get the cranberry sauce, you get the sweet potato pie, you get, I don't care about pumpkin pie, that can go in the trash. But you got your pecan pie or other pies. You get your biscuits, you get your rolls. Like it's a plethora.
Green bean casserole, baby. I'm telling you, I don't know. A lot of people do not like green bean casserole. I fucking love green bean casserole.
Not a fan.
It's why I get out of bed for Thanksgiving. I get out of bed for this show because of Albert in the chat, by the way. Hello, Albert.
Albert.
Welcome back to you and to all who are joining us here. I'm curious for everybody in the chat, by the way, what is your preferred Thanksgiving dish? I just want somebody to be on my side, let's be honest. And I also want to endorse this beer, if I may, Dustin. I don't want to jump ahead too much here, but I know it's Thanksgiving, but I'm drinking a Christmas beer, man. In fact, I'm drinking a Fistmas beer, to be exact, from Revolution Brewing. It is a red ale with ginger and orange peel. I've never had anything like it. It's freaking delightful.
That sounds good. Yeah, I was out this weekend and I saw a couple of Christmas beers at a couple of the bars we were at, and I was just like, I know it is the season, but it still just feels a little too early. Maybe it's because it was so nice this last weekend. It was a little too warm yet. Where now the temperature is dipped. So, I'm definitely going to keep my eyes peeled. Nice choice on the beer, though. And Revolution Brewing, rarely do they have a bad beer. So, good choice there. Me, I'm back to the old box wine. Like I said, I don't have to work tomorrow. It's Wine Tuesday, so
it's wine o'clock, baby.
That's right,
by the way,
right.
Ross Roberts in the chat here, going back to the Thanksgiving dish, says, y'all know 7-Up salad looks and sounds disgusting, tastes delicious. I don't know 7-Up salad. Dustin, is this familiar
never
to you?
heard of this.
Ross, you got to tell us what this is.
Yeah, give us some ingredients. I feel like it's a Midwestern salad, but I've never heard of it.
Is it like 7-layer salad? That's what I'm envisioning. 7-layer salad, a big staple of my family's Christmas on one side. So I'll be curious if there's any overlap there, Ross. But otherwise, I'm going to have to Google a recipe, which, by the way, is like reading a fucking novel to look up a single recipe these days. So I really don't want to. Hopefully, Ross can help us out.
Oh, come on, Ross. Don't let us down.
That's right.
But yeah, before we get into kind of the heart of the show here, I just have to bring it up. Let's rip the Band-Aid off, Jake. So much sadness this last weekend, so many injuries and big name players too that definitely affect your fantasy teams. If you were in the fantasy contention, chances are these injuries really hurt you if they were on your team. So we have Joe Burrow out for the rest of the year. We got Mark Andrews out for the rest of the year. Achan, who I was really excited about, left with injury. Still don't know how long he's going to be out. I just don't even know what to say. It makes me so sad.
Cooper Kupp injured again. What a shocker.
There's just too many. It's
crazy.
Ugh.
Kenneth Walker. Really, just look at my home league fantasy team and you'll find the injuries. They're all there. It's an incredible bummer. We're going to be talking about a lot of this stuff later on in the episode with some of these questions that will get to the heart of this, along with the recent news, the firing of Matt Canada from the Steelers. There's a lot of implications to the news of the week, so to speak, for this one. And it's not all going to be good, but we'll muck our way through it here.
No. So I guess just cross your fingers. If you don't have any injuries on your team, just thank your lucky stars and keep those fingers crossed that hopefully you end up injury free, because at this point, that's the only way you're going to win your championship, I think.
It's about attrition. It's also about being smarter than your opponent, obviously. If I may say so, I'm pretty good at that on this show as it pertains to our shot bets. Let's just revisit last week's shot bet just for clarification of how smart I am. Throwing out Najee Harris versus Jerome Ford. Justin, you probably thought you were real smart. You're real sly throwing that out. But I saw through it. I took Jerome Ford, who had 11.9 fantasy points last week, to Najee's paltry 4.6 points. So you know what to do.
Yeah. I mean, it's, unfortunate that it was a Jalen Warren game here and he had like 25 points or whatever it was, because that's always good to see. He ripped off that 75 yarder early in the game, and it was just
big time.
It's no Najee time after that. So yes, Jake, I am got my little bottle of Fireball here.
Classy.
Get this open. And Jake, you are an amazing fantasy football prognosticator / genius. Cheers, my friend.
Warms the cockles of my heart to hear you say that and see you drink that. Fireball, not yet a sponsor of the show. Give us a call. Ross Roberts, by the way, revisiting what is a 7-Up salad. It's like a Jell-O salad. I guess there's lime Jell-O, any kind of lime gelatin, and then some cream cheese in there, along with 2 cups of 7-Up. So that's legit. That's the namesake. And then a package of Dream Whip. I'm curious if that's just whipped cream, right?
Cool.
So it's like Cool Whip. And then pineapple in there. So I think I've had like a variation of this before. Yeah, it's not bad.
It's something, all right. Definitely something. It's definitely a Midwest salad. Let's be honest. It's just find a bunch of crap that's just sitting in your pantry and in your fridge. Let's throw it all together. It'll be good. It'll be delicious.
You know what? Most of the time it is.
It truly is. But yeah. All right. Let's move on here, Jake. Should we hit our drunk trade of the week?
Let's do it.
Drunk, hammer, drunk.
Drunk trade of the week.
Where, oh, where do you think we turn for this week's drunk trade? Of course, it's Reddit, this time from Reddit user Dynasty F, who traded away Derrick Henry for Will Fuller back when Henry was super inconsistent. I forget the year, they say, but it was right before he blew up. The other team won the championship, and I went through a couple years of being painfully average. I laugh about it now because I love my current team, but that put me in RB purgatory for a few years. For reference, that Derrick Henry year right before he blew up was probably 2016, maybe 2017. This is back when Will Fuller had not, I don't know, ripped off his thumb. I don't know whatever happened with his thumb, but that was the issue there, I guess. Dustin, I don't think we need to dwell on the trade. What I'm curious about is this little bit at the end. Dynasty F says, I love my current team, but that put me in RB purgatory for a few years. I don't know what RB purgatory really is in Dynasty these days because I don't trade for high value running backs anymore. What is your thought on RB purgatory in Dynasty?
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of see it. I mean, if you're, looking back, 5-6 years ago, the prevailing thought at the time was you had to have at least your one stud, usually two running backs on your team. Is very running back heavy early in the draft, and that's what you kind of built around. Where now you're building around quarterback, because it's super flex, most leagues, or a lot of leagues are, I should say, and then building around the young stud wide receivers. And then you're just kind of filling in with running backs later, hopefully hitting gold. So I get at the time how that, kind of put them in running back purgatory. But yeah, now, I mean, my personal philosophy now is I like to have like the one anchor RB, maybe not taking one in like the first or second round, because let's be honest, they tend to still get pushed down in the drafts a little bit. So I like to have like the one anchor running back and then filling in much later in the draft with high upside guys that have that route to, volume, basically. If should an injury happen, or they, they're pass catchers that'll be involved in more in the passing game than the run game. That's kind of how I like to attack my running backs.
Yeah, I don't even do the anchor RB thing anymore. In a startup in Dynasty, I will almost always end up drafting somebody in the first few rounds because, like you said, they just get pushed so far down the draft board that you start to feel crazy for not drafting them. But more often than not, I'll turn around and trade those guys right away and try to, get some wide receiver depth and some future picks. And then I kind of do the piecemeal with running back because there's always these guys that jump out every year. And it's like, well, they'll be usable for this year. Who knows about next year, but who cares, because you had to pay a couple of thirds to get them or something like that. So that is my philosophy. Just for fun, to look back on Will Fuller, it wasn't all lost here. I know the Will Fuller experience got real bad real fast, but if we assume this was 2017, because that was Henry's sophomore year, kind of when he wasn't quite Derrick Henry yet, those were some of his best years, Will Fuller's years. In fact, it was 2020 was arguably the best year that he ever had. So I don't want to make it seem like this guy or gal got nothing in return with Will Fuller. You got a few quality years.
Yeah, you just didn't know when his games were going to hit. He was very boom bust.
I think he was active.
He had the 1 year where he was semi-consistent, but I mean, most years you had to guess on which week he was going to hit. You never knew when Watson was going to throw to him. So it was pretty frustrating. So it wasn't a total bust, but Derrick Henry though, that freaking just stiff arm machine.
He really is a stiff arm machine. Well, that was fun to revisit for us, probably not for the submitter. I appreciate you being brave and sharing that story, by the way. As always, continue to submit your drunk trades. You can do that via Reddit. I always post a Reddit thread like once a month at this point, but otherwise send them directly to us at FFDustyDog or at Jake Trowbridge or at Drinking Fantasy on X.
That's right. We will find it all. And don't you dare call it X. It's still Twitter.
I did. I finally did it.
Ugh,
I did it.
I'm grossed out by you. All right, let's get into it here. So we got some mailbag Q&A type questions. Folks in the chat, if you have your start sit questions or any question, really, it doesn't have to be fantasy football related here. This is our Thanksgiving episode here. We're up for anything. So, but we will start with fantasy football until some more interesting stuff in the chat rolls in. So Jake, let's start with you. You had mentioned the firing of Matt Canada in Pittsburgh. Their offense has just been putrid. For a number of years. I know people in Pittsburgh were calling for Matt Canada to be fired for the last couple seasons. Yeah, he never was for whatever reason. So, do you expect a change at all in this offense? Or if so, if there is going to be a change, who do you think is going to be impacted most?
If I've learned anything from diehard Steelers fans on Twitter, see, I called it Twitter this time, is that Matt Canada was to blame for almost every issue on this Steelers offense. That's the way that it seems, at least.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know better because we don't really have a great frame of reference when it comes to Matt Canada. What I will say is if the last couple of weeks are any indication, we should maybe continue to expect Jaylen Warren to be the dominant running back there. He's definitely the most impactful guy in that backfield. Najee Harris is what he is. He is the Green Bay Packer A.J. Dillon. If I can make that comp, if I can make that analogy, which would make Jaylen Warren the Aaron Jones of this offense. So I do think that Jaylen Warren continues to be the more impactful guy. I think the other biggest benefit coming out of this should be getting Deontay Johnson the ball at all costs, getting the ball out faster, not having Kenny Pickett sit there and take hit after hit and just loiter. I've never seen somebody loiter with the ball without any clear intention as much as what I've seen from Kenny Pickett like the last few weeks. And when he is decisive, when he decides like, I got it locked in, I'm throwing this baby, he throws it like 15 yards to the right of his intended receiver. It's the most batshit thing in the world. So if they can hone in on quick decision-making and quick short throws for him, Deontay Johnson should be the guy. Maybe Pat Freiermuth becomes usable again for fantasy. That's not a well that I'm really interested in drinking from until I see it. But those are probably the two biggest changes, I guess. Do you think that this does anything of significance for George Pickens?
Probably not. I mean, if anything, I would expect maybe, a little bit more simplified offense, like you said, to try to get the ball out of Pickett's hands a little bit faster, use their running back duo maybe a little bit more effectively. So I don't know. I mean, you're still going to take your shots downfield, and that's what Pickens is for. He's the deep guy on this offense, where Deontay and Freiermuth are more the underneath guys. So, yeah, he'll still get his shots, but I mean, I'm not high on him at all. I mean, I'm basically avoiding him at this point. I know he had his couple blow up games there, but that was when Deontay was out, and since then, yeah, I mean, the whole offense has been terrible, so I can't even say it's him as much as I'd like to bag on him. But,
Sure.
But yeah, I think what you said, it's going to be, I think, more running and then focusing on Deontay Johnson.
Yeah, I think that's the hope. I don't know, though. It can't get worse. That's what we often say in these situations. It can't get worse, and I truly believe that here. Question in the chat that I do want to throw to here, coming from Nino Pena with Tim Boyle. Oh, Tim Boyle. At quarterback now. This is for the New York Jets, who finally decided enough is enough with Zach Wilson. Seemingly not targeting Breece Hall like Zach Wilson was, I'm pretty scared. Should I trade Breece Hall for Rachaad White plus? Dustin, Rachaad White has been a PPR monster these last few games. Seems like the more consistent running back. Is that a trade that you'd be looking to explore?
Sure. I guess it depends on what your plus is. I mean, I don't know how much more you're going to get on top of Rachaad. Assuming this is a redraft team, right. For Dynasty, I wouldn't be making a trade like this at all. Breece will be just fine. But in redraft, I don't know how much of a plus you're going to get because Rachaad has been out playing Breece basically all season long. And if anyone, whoever has this player in your league, if they're any sort of competent fantasy player, they're going to, just look at the raw fantasy points and see that, Rachaad is outscoring Breece. So I don't know that you'd be able to get a plus. If you can, that's great, but I wouldn't expect a lot on top of Brees at this point. But I don't think that's a bad trade. I mean, Rashad White, I think I mentioned that last week or the week before. I mean, I'll take the L on him because I did not expect this whatsoever. But yeah, if you can make that happen, I would say go for it.
Yeah, I guess I don't want to overstate the little bitty sample size that we got from Tim Boyle in relation to Brees Hall. I think it's very hard to determine, oh, he's absolutely going to do this with Brees or he's absolutely not going to. I still love the talent of Brees Hall. I still think that he is going to be a very usable running back in that offense for the duration because he has to be. He's the only thing doing there. For the plus side of this, they did go on in the chat to say maybe like Kareem Hunt or Deontay Johnson as the plus. Deontay Johnson, the guy that we just talked about, maybe getting a boost from the Matt Canada firing, and maybe somebody that's under the radar for the opposing team that says like, sure, I'll toss him in because he hasn't done anything. I'm not that excited about him. So if that's the type of plus that you could get, I'd be fine with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dig it. All right. One more from the chat. Why don't we, before we hop back into our regularly scheduled programming from Ross Roberts, Mr. 7-Up Salad himself. This is a 10-team PPR, one quarterback redraft team. So this is interesting. We're going to read through a lot of names here. So audio listeners, listen up. Also watch the show on YouTube next time. Allen and Lamar are the two quarterbacks here. Then at running back, we've got Jonathan Taylor, Alvin Kamara, Breece Hall, Devin Achane, your guy, and Rashad White. What an embarrassment of riches there. And then wide receiver, Stephon Diggs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Keenan Allen, Tank Dell. Why are you bragging to us so much, Ross? This is ridiculous. And then at tight end, had Mark Andrews, still has Trey McBride, and Dallas Goedert, who may or may not be coming back at some point this season. Hard to really say there. And then the San Francisco defense. Don't feel like anyone on my roster is droppable. Thank you for acknowledging that part, Ross. Heading into the playoffs, I'd like at least one roster spot to be able to stream a defense, block an opponent's waiver wire pickup, etc. Want some mobility there. So what do we think? Going back to this, and by the way, the trade deadline has passed, he specified. Going back to this team, is there an easy drop candidate on there? I mean, Mark Andrews just sitting there, right?
Yeah. I mean, that is the obvious one, whether you have an IR spot that you can move him to or just drop him. Because he's not coming back before your fantasy playoffs are done. Yeah. This year, I know Harbaugh was saying that there's a chance if the Ravens go deep into the playoffs, he could return, but that doesn't help us for fantasy purposes. So yeah, Andrews is the one to drop there for sure. And that would leave you that open roster spot you're looking for. I don't know that you necessarily need to stream a defense since you have San Francisco, unless they haven't had their bye yet. That'd be the only time to pick up a defense for the 1 week there as a rental. But otherwise, I mean, you've got one of the top defenses in fantasy, so I think you're set there. Yeah, I mean, your team is stacked. I'd feel really good about where you're at. If you want that one player, again, if someone pops and you just want it that to be flexible, Andrews is the guy. What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, for sure, Andrews. Regardless of what Harbaugh is spouting about, maybe he'll come back. Maybe he doesn't do me nothing for my fantasy team right now. So he's an easy drop. I am curious to hear your thoughts on this with, leaving yourself that option to block an opponent's waiver wire pickup. It's an interesting concept. It's not one that we get to explore in our home league because we are limited to 12 ad drops on the year. So that's not going to be a strategy that we implore, but sky's the limit for waiver ads. How often do you go in and say, like, I'm going to look at their team, before waivers process, whoever I'm playing that week, and go, this is who they're probably going to go after, and then just go hog on it. Do you do that? Would you do that?
Never do that. No, I don't worry about other people's rosters. I mean, if there's an obvious player that has popped off, that, say a couple weeks ago when it was Keontae Mitchell, for Baltimore, going back to Baltimore, like being able to pick him up before everyone else, that type of situation, sure. But as a rule, I just worry about what's going to make my team better as opposed to trying to block other players. But that's just my personal philosophy. If you want to play that way, I mean, that's good on you to be able to make those moves and have that foresight to see what your opponent's going to do. I think it's kind of a savvy thing to do, but like I said, I just don't practice that at all.
I personally don't do it for the sake explicitly of only blocking my opponent for that week, but I am interested in the idea of like, I don't really need this player at all this week, maybe not even next week or the week after. But if it's going to prevent them from picking up a player of need and allow me to stash a player that I would like maybe for the rest of the season, I'm doing that, 10 times out of 10. So I was just curious
Right.
about that strategy of it. In the chat here, Yeetman143 is asking rest of season thoughts on Javonte Williams, Michael Pittman, and Brandon Ayuk. And I'm guessing out of that group wants maybe a preference there. Let me get mine out of the way immediately, if you don't mind, Dustin.
Go
Brandon
for it.
Ayuk, fucking stud the rest of the season. Last week is what should have happened the last 4 weeks with Brandon Ayuk. The guy is always open, and he never seemed to get hit on the big plays when he was open. It's not that he didn't get targets, but like dude's in the middle of the field perpetually, nobody around him, and Brock would look his way half of the time. So I'm hopeful that what we got from Ayuk this past week is better going forward. That's my preference. What do you think out of those three?
Yeah, Ayuk would be my number one as well. I think Javonte is number 2 in this list for me. We talked about this at length last week. How he's been getting the volume. He just hasn't been super efficient. But, the last few weeks he's posted, 100 yards total, offense. He's been scoring some touchdowns. So he's my number 2 on that list for sure. I really like him. Denver's offense seems to be getting it together. Peyton seems to be working his magic finally over there. So I like the way that Denver's is trending at this point.
Yeah, I dig that. His volume's going to go up, up, and up. Maybe his efficiency stays exactly where it is. And that's tough, but he gets enough volume where it shouldn't be a huge concern. Question also, not sure if this is rest of season or for this week. So I say we do both. For this one. Asking Chris Olave or Mike Evans. A bit that we didn't cover at the top of the show because it's not as big a news, but Michael Thomas going to be a no-go here. So for this week, let's start with between Chris Olave and Mike Evans. I know Mike Evans gets to play the Colts. That's why I'm just going to tell you right now, my answer is Mike Evans. I like the gross garbage shootout that should be Baker Mayfield versus Gardner Minshew. That's either going to be an all-out disaster of a game in the best way or just outright one of the better games, I think, to watch. But what do you think here?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I agree. I would take Evans. The Saints are playing the Falcons this week. The Falcons, while the record doesn't necessarily reflect it, their defense has been better than expected. And if Michael Thomas is out, that's just one less target that the defense has to worry about covering. So give me Evans. He's a stud, always will be until he retires.
Yeah. And by the way, I go this weekend, rest of the season, Mike Evans, same.
Yep. Same.
All right, let's get back to our regularly scheduled programming here.
All right. So next, Jake, the big talk of the town with Andrews being out now. How do you expect these pass targets to be distributed amongst the offense? Zay Flowers has flashed at times, but disappeared other weeks. Bateman hasn't really done much. I'm not sure who Isaiah Likely. Is he just going to step into the Mark Andrews role basically at this point? OBJ, is he going to be the guy? Like what are you expecting? Or is it just going to kind of get just distributed evenly amongst everyone and just go for Lamar, basically.
I mean, yeah, that's the easy answer is still just Lamar Jackson. In previous years, this would have cratered Lamar Jackson's fantasy value to some extent too. Like last couple of years when he was so heavily reliant on Mark Andrews, it's not that he would have disappeared off of the fantasy sheets, but it would have been a big downgrade. Now it's, I mean, still sucks. But to your point about the pass catchers, Isaiah Likely, it's not Mark Andrews. We've seen bits and pieces of that experiment where Andrews has missed. And it's not that Isaiah Likely can't have a blow-up game, but he's not treated the same way as Mark Andrews. Lamar Jackson doesn't seem to look at his way as often or in like tough situations like he does with Mark Andrews. Isaiah Likely reads more like a wide receiver than an actual tight end at this spot. I think OBJ gets a decent bump up. Saw it even after the injury this past week. You know, in the red zone, I think we could bank on maybe a couple more touchdowns going his way. But yeah, I think it's going to be pretty spread out. Is there anybody that you're targeting primarily out of this group?
I mean, if I had to pick one, it would probably be OBJ. Zay Flowers would probably be a close second because he did flash early in the season. And, you know, hopefully now he's had, maybe that was just pure luck, you know, early in the season. And he's had time as a rookie now to get a little bit more acclimated with the NFL. So maybe at this point they can start to rely on him a little bit more with Andrews being out. I don't know, but those would be the two I'm probably looking most closely at.
Yeah, I agree with you there. We're on the same page once again. Let's see if we can get on the same page with Vito in the chat, by the way. Asking, should I drop Najee Harris for Zach Charbonnet or A.J. Dillon? Other running backs for Vito are Jonathan Taylor, Breece Hall, Kyron Williams, Keaton Mitchell, Ty Chandler, and Tyjae Spears. A lot of handcuff potential there. A lot of kind of mid-range running backs, let's say. Also says, I have Kyron on IR as well, and will need to drop somebody for him if I move him. Or do you just stick him there and wait, I guess? So, first of all, is Najee Harris droppable? We've had this discussion before on this show, and weeks ago I said yes. Are you with me here?
I am. Yeah, he is droppable. Maybe you want to give it 1 week here to see, you know, as we're just talking about with this new offense, maybe just to see if something happens here, you know, but barring anything miraculous happening this week, yeah, he is droppable. And either Sharbs or Dillon. I think give me Dillon. He's looked better the last couple weeks, a little bit more explosive in the offense. Where early in the season, I thought he just looked really slow and out of shape. I feel like he has come alive a little bit more these last couple weeks. So give me Dillon. I really like Charbonnet. I just don't trust that offense in Seattle right now. Not that I trust the offense in Green Bay all that much more, let's be honest, but I think Dillon at least will get the carries.
He will. My question is he getting any targets? Is he going to do any targets? Because even with Aaron Jones dinged up and out of the game for most of it this past week against the Chargers, here's A.J. Dillon rumbling for his 10 fantasy points. You know, just like the week before when he rumbled for his 10 fantasy points. That's what he is, A.J. Dillon, unless he gets the touchdown. And this isn't the highest scoring offense. I think we can both agree on that as Packer fans here. They're few and far between. So I also don't like Zach Charbonnet in the short term because they have to play Thursday Night Football on a short week against the 49ers. That's bad. They played the Dallas Cowboys the week after that. That's bad. Geno Smith is banged up, has his own injuries to deal with. That's not bad. Great. I don't like any of this for Zach Charbonnet. So I guess I'm really having a mind freak moment because I really want to say, yes, Najee Harris, of course, he's droppable. But I look at the two options that you want to pick up. I don't know.
But
I don't know
when's
if
the
there's
last time
anybody else
Archie has scored double-digit points, though?
2 weeks ago.
Okay.
No, 3 weeks. What he had a blow up game where I felt like an ass because it was like a week or two after I said to drop him, and I felt like an absolute asshole. So I think it was just a couple of. It was week 10. He had 18 and a half fantasy points. So that was a nice showing. To your point, yeah, I would say Charbonnet has more upside. So I guess I would drop him for him. I think Patrick Taylor is interesting if you're deep in a league, by the way. He got activated and signed off of the Patriots practice squad and signed back to Green Bay. And he's played some games for them, and he got some passes thrown his way. So that's something, I guess.
There is that. Yes. All right. So I'm not sure which of our questions we should talk here next. So, all right, let's do this one. So we love our fantasy studs. You know, they are studs for a reason. Are there any that you are nervous about going into the playoffs that maybe they could drop off based on their schedule? Or are you just going to plug them because they're your studs and you start your studs, basically?
This is a very, very prescient question to ask in the week that Joe Burrow is out for the season. And Jamar Chase, again, look at my home league lineup, all these guys that I have to debate. Jamar Chase, do I automatically say he's must start going forward with Jake Browning in at quarterback? I mean, I think that he's talented enough. It's not the same, but early on in the season, we saw Joe Burrow really banged up, and he wasn't looking like himself, and it was pretty rough for the team. But Jamar Chase still got his. We even saw after Joe Burrow left the game this past week, Jake Browning comes in. It wasn't pretty, but Jamar Chase at least scored a touchdown for you. So, that's a specific example where I'm still a little nervous, but I think the nerves have to be overridden of just saying, look, the guy's talented as fuck. He should get still force-fed the ball, and you have to start him. So I think the guys that you got to worry about are a handful of running backs. I do think that you have to worry about Kenneth Walker when he comes back. We know Pete Carroll is fickle as all hell when it comes to his backfields, and all it takes is one injury for the guy behind the guy to become the guy. This is Chris Carson from years ago. This is, endless examples of the Seattle backfield. So I'm worried about him. I guess I'm a little bit worried about the running backs like even Saquon. With Tommy DeVito, how sustainable is Saquon Barkley as your elite running back? I'm still skeptical about him. So there's running backs like that, and Derrick Henry falls into that mode for me as well. So those are my guys. Do you have any that you're pretty nervous about here?
Not really. There's guys that we've seen that are kind of starting to tail off a little bit, and I don't know if that's just because of the schedule or we're getting into the later season here and they're just starting to get worn down. Like ETN was really strong to start the year, but has kind of tailed off here the last couple of weeks. And I don't know if he falls underneath that stud category per se, even though he was producing really well. But there's guys like that, like Pollard. I'm not really high on here, even though he should be doing better, because he's a much better running back than what we've seen this year. But basically, no. As far as your studs, there's a reason why they're studs. Going back to your Jamar Chase, get the ball in their hands, and chances are they can bust off a 70-yard catch and run to the house. They're that good that they're able to make their own plays happen. So for me, no, I'm not really worried about the studs at this point. Maybe Browning is terrible and the Bengals offense totally falls off the face of the earth. I don't think that'll happen because, like you said, you got very good pieces around him to support him. So I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, I agree. So let this be an announcement. I'm not sitting my studs, damn it. And I don't consider Tony Pollard to be a stud. So that's how I get around that, by the way. Albert back in the chat here asking, for this week only, would we start Brock Purdy or Jared Goff? So Purdy gets to play the Seahawks. This is Thursday night football, of course, or Thursday day football. Honestly, I don't even know when that game is. It doesn't matter, but it is on Thursday. And then Jared
Thursday
Goff
night.
is playing the Packers. So my answer is pretty firmly on the Jared Goff train, getting to go against Green Bay. Already banged up in the secondary. Not that great anyways. Brock Purdy's playing against the Geno Smith list, maybe Seattle Seahawks. I'm very nervous about that injury and if Purdy will have to do anything. What do you think about this one?
I think you'd be safe either way, but yeah, I think I'm going to lean with you with Goff. We've seen that offense be able to put up big points. While the Packers defense has been surprisingly better than I thought they were, they're just outside the top 10 in total defense for the season. They've got too many weapons, and the Packers defense is a little bit banged up right now. And with Brock Purdy, I mean, I don't mind that matchup. I think you're going to be fine either way. If depending on where you want to lie, I think you get plenty of points from both QBs. But yeah, I just see that matchup against Seattle being more of maybe like a Christian McCaffrey game, where they'll just run the ball a lot and he'll end up with like 3 touchdowns on the ground as opposed to Purdy throwing them. So yeah, I would lean Goff as well.
So you're saying fire up CMC this week. You're not going to sit him. Is that what I'm understanding right now?
Yes. Going back to start your studs. That's
Right.
one I would definitely start.
Wanted to get that clarity, as I'm sure everybody else did in the chat. Benguin02 is asking, should I trade Austin Eckler and Jalen Waddle for Chris Olave, Travis Kelce, and Garrett Wilson? There's the roster for you if you want to peruse that there, Dustin. In a vacuum, though, we're talking about, by the way, talk about a disappointing stud. Travis Kelce looked pretty off the last couple of weeks. It's unfortunate. He is getting to be 34 years old. He's not even getting to be. He is 34 years old. There is a natural cliff that we've all been dreading for Travis Kelce. I guess, obviously answer this question. Because
I blame Taylor Swift. Yes.
Don't you? But so this question of the trade, but also what do we expect for Travis Kelce the rest of the season? So would you rather have Eckler and Waddle, or would you rather have Olave, Kelce, and Wilson?
Ooh, this is a tough one. You got Ingram as your tight end, so I mean that'd definitely be an upgrade. I mean, not getting a running back in that trade really hurts. I mean, you've got JT, Ford, and Pollard then basically. I mean, if Pollard actually turns this season around, then I think you'd be fine. But I am not super confident in that. And you've already got Chase, T. Higgins, Amar. I mean, you've already got a solid wide receiver core. So I don't know that you necessarily need Olave and Wilson. I would probably stick with what you got, even though I love the upgrade in the tight end. I just don't know that evens out your running back room there.
I agree. I want Eckler and Waddle. Eckler, a little bit of a bummer day this past week, but prior to that, he was amazing. He gets tons of passes that you want, especially if this is full PPR. I'd rather have Waddle over Olave. I'd rather have Waddle over Garrett Wilson, especially with Tim Boyle in at quarterback. But again, maybe that's not the worst thing for Garrett Wilson. Maybe he'll pump up those rookie numbers. I don't know. But I would stick with Eckler and Waddle as well. Oaks in the chat is asking this trade. It's Jamar Chase for Mike Evans and Deontay Johnson. So a lot of action, a lot of names we've talked about earlier on. You don't want that?
No, I don't want that. Okay. Let me keep Chase. You know it's going to get funneled through him. He is the number one on that offense. And like I said, he can we've seen him do it, break off 70, 80-yard catch and runs at any given moment. So give me Chase.
It's very
2
difficult.
quarters does not equal $1.
I take offense to you calling Mike Evans a quarter. With Deontay Johnson, yes, that's fine. Mike Evans better
Okay.
at least a 50-cent piece up
Okay.
in here.
50 plus 25 does not equal $1.
All right, that's fine. He is the wide receiver 11 on the year for what it's worth. And although this is much closer for me than it is for you, apparently, I would still hang my hat on Jamar Chase. All right, Chandler Costantino saying Josh Allen is a bye week here, is the first week of the playoffs. So they play in week 13, I believe that would be. So don't have a QB2 for the first week of the playoffs. Would I trade James Conner and Amari Cooper for Brock Purdy and Ramondre Stevenson? Yeah, I'd do that.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I don't even like Ramondre Stevenson that much, but you can't go into your playoffs without a respectable quarterback.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That was easy. That was much easier than any of the questions we were asked previously.
Yeah.
Love it.
All right. Should we move on to starts of the week?
Let's do it.
Okay. So to recap last week, Jake, you had Christian Kirk versus Tennessee coming in at 7.8 points. And I believe you had some sort of guarantee with this. Would you like to remind the folks exactly what this guarantee was?
Yeah, here's what I came out and said last week. I said, Christian Kirk, I'm so confident in you because you've only scored fewer than 10 fantasy points once previously that I'm going to say if you don't get double-digit fantasy points, I'm going to take a shot for all the people who listen to me. And look at that. It was a Calvin Ridley game. Who could have possibly predicted, except every fan of bad karma in the world? So because of that, I will be taking a shot in your honor. Hopefully it did not tank your week if you did listen to me and roll out Christian Kirk. I'm going to be enjoying some of Ryan's finest. It's an Irish cream liqueur. Look, I'm not going to do any significant damage to myself here, but it's more about the fact that I have to do it, I think, right?
Yes.
All right, well,
It
cheers
counts.
to all you.
All right. While Jake is doing that, my start of the week last week was Devin Singletary going against Arizona. Came in with 19.8 points. So he had a very good week and hopefully helped you win your week last week. So we were 50-50 split there. Let's get to 100% this week, Jake. Who is your start of the week?
I'm going on the fringes this time. Look, I went with Mr. Safety last week. That obviously didn't play out. I'm going towards the fringes. I know people are talking about starting your studs or not. If you have a debate about a potential stud on your lineup or somebody that you just don't really want to shoehorn in there, can I interest you in Demario Douglas? Still available in more than 50% of waivers the last time that I checked as well. Pop Douglas is on a team that is very bad in the New England Patriots. And I was just talking to Chris Harris about this prior to this show. I think that this is the type of game where, or games going forward, he's the young, hot guy on their team. They need to start targeting these guys and start building for next year already. This isn't a playoff team with or without Mac Jones, with or without Bailey Zappi, but whoever's in there has shown a propensity to target Pop Douglas a ton. So if you're in a PPR format, I'm going to give the exact same guarantee as last week. This is a 10 plus fantasy points guy, at least in full PPR. So I stand by it. If he does not get you your 10, come back next week. I will take another shot in your honor.
All right. I do like that. He has been he's been an under the radar guy. I've got him on a couple dynasty teams, and I've actually started him in a handful of spots for bye weeks and as a flex play. And he hasn't really disappointed. And he's not a world beater, and he's not giving you 20 points or anything, but he's had some quality games there as a fill-in. So I really like that, and especially against this matchup with the Giants, like that's just. You got to love that. Mine, this is probably the only time you're going to hear me tout this player as someone I think you should start because, I have a long history on this podcast of disliking this player. And that's Joe Mixon going against Pittsburgh. I do think that rest of the season here, they're going to try to rely on him a little bit more, seeing how they have the rookie at quarterback with Joe Burrow being out. They can't just rely on him to throw the ball to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins all game long. They're going to try to slow the game down a little bit and take the ball out of his hands slightly. So maybe a little bit of a gimme here, but I do think Joe Mixon is going to be a smash play this week and probably the rest of the season.
Gross.
As much as
I cannot believe you said it. I can't believe the words came out of your mouth on this podcast. Top 12? Top 12 this week for running backs?
It wouldn't surprise me one bit.
All right. Woof.
I know.
Fucking woof, man.
I know. We're in the upside down. I don't know what to say.
God. Yeah. Well, let's revisit this. It would be poetic justice for this to just blow up in your face because you finally decided Joe Mixon was a good play at some point.
I know. All right, Jake. So our shot bet this week, it's up to you to give us our shot bet. So what say you?
Yeah, I'm going to try to make this not easy. I don't want this to be easy on either of us, to be fair. So here's what I want. I'm looking ahead at my own tanking dynasty team right now. One of two, by the way. I am actively tanking / rebuilding in 2 dynasty teams. And I was just looking at this matchup, and it struck me as one that I think we could get on board with here. So we're looking at Baltimore playing the Chargers this week.
All right.
Sunday night game. Baltimore versus the Chargers. We don't know what's happening with Cooper Kupp. Okay. We were just talking about Lamar Jackson spreading the ball out across his pass catchers. I want to know, pull the wide receivers together for both teams. Who would you prefer? Ravens or Chargers? You have to take the questionable Cooper Kupp along with this.
It's just wide receivers, not
just
including
wide
tight
receivers.
ends.
No tight ends, no running backs involved here.
All right. Give me the Chargers.
All right. I think that's wise. I was really hoping to kind of throw you off with that one a little bit. I won't lie. But, oh, fuck me. I'm dropping phones. That's how mad I am about this. All right. You can have the Chargers. Hopefully, OBJ lives up to the billing that I gave him earlier on in the show.
Yeah, here's hoping. But I feel like, no, I won't even say it because I'll jinx myself, and I definitely don't want to do that. So
do it.
Good luck,
say what you wanted,
Jake. Any final thoughts here before we sign off for the evening here, since we've kind of reached the end of our show sheet?
Yeah. By the way, any last minute questions, of course, throw them into the chat. But I will say this. I know you might be scraping and clawing your way into a fantasy playoff position right now, these next 2 weeks. So when we're talking about starting your studs, not starting your studs, or some of these very difficult lineup decisions, this is the area I say go with your gut. There's a level of analysis at this stage in the game. It is so much harder to live with a defeat when you went against your own gut and just said, oh, yep, no, consensus said this guy, so I'm going to put this guy in there. I've been on the other side of it. It feels 1,000 times worse than in week 3. So trust your gut is what I'll say.
Absolutely. Couldn't say it better. Really, folks, hopefully you're listening to this either joining us live or early Wednesday on your travels to Thanksgiving. Get your lineup set. We've got 3 games on Thursday, 1 on Friday. So it's not like you can sneak by not setting your lineup prior to the Thursday game because you will be screwed this week with so many games happening. So really be on top of it, making sure you're checking out that last minute injury news prior to kickoff. And then, just pray to the fantasy gods that no more injuries happen for anyone on any squad anywhere, so that we can have good things for the fantasy playoffs here. because that's what we deserve.
That is very true. All right. How about one last question from the chat to take us out? What do you say?
All right.
We have one from Alex Flores. Needs 2. Is full PPR between Brian Robinson, Zay Flowers, DeAndre Hopkins, and Zach Charbonnet. Who do you want 2 out of those 4, Dustin? Who you
I would
in?
take Brian Robinson and give me Hopkins.
Yep. Same here. Zay Flowers is close-ish to Hopkins for me, but Robinson's the dominant guy. Zach Charbonnet, nothing to do with him this week.
Yep. All right. Well, that was a fun show this evening. I like a good mailbag question show. Good luck, everyone, this week as our fantasy playoffs are inching closer and closer to us. Again, any last-minute fantasy-related questions here as we're firing up over Thanksgiving weekend, hit my partner up at Jake Trowbridge. You can find me at FF Dusty Dog. And you can hit us up at Drinking Fantasy. One of us will definitely respond to you. And good luck this week, folks. And keep drinking and talking fantasy football.
Cheers, FFers.